And what we're asking, because we have a lot of candidates, what we're just asking you to do at the beginning is to introduce yourself, state your qualifications, state your goals, and state what sets you apart from some of the other candidates. And after that, we will open up the floor for questions and answers, and we'll discuss that when that time comes. And so we will start. Now, I don't know yes?
How are we doing timekeeping?
We're saying it's about 4 minutes. And I have my 15-second form, but I have to get my...
I'll get the clock.
Ariana is a candidate for Township Committee. She's going to help. I'm taking the time. So here's the 15 seconds.
Oh my God, where is it? Got it.
Okay, onward. Okay.
4 minutes.
50 seconds for each.
What?
How many minutes they got for each one? Oh, 4 minutes? 4 minutes. Got it.
4 minutes.
4 minutes, guys.
Okay, so we will start with Narda. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming. And I know it's a busy night for everybody. My name is Narda Chisholm Green. I am a resident of South Orange. I've lived in this town since I was 8 years old. I migrated from Kingston, Jamaica with my parents. My grandparents also migrated here in the 70s. I have a history of, my uncle went to school here. I've gone to school here. So I have 5 children in the district. 3 that are out of school, and 2 that are still in school at Columbia High School. Let's see. I work for a telecom industry company, and I manage a group of people that monitor the network. You asked what your qualifications are. My qualifications are that I'm a parent of this district. I've experienced the district from start to finish, in a sense, and my children have had similar experiences. I have children that had honors experience, and I have children that were classified, so I have a lot of experience within that aspect. I have experience as far as how I have been with my teachers. I'm a big proponent of multi-age. I had a very good experience with the multi-age program, and I think that we need to figure out how to make that work. My goals, I would like to get a seat on the board. Obviously, that's one of my goals. But saying that, I'd like to figure out how we can make our communication better. That's been the common theme for everybody here, and every debate that we go to, it comes up all the time. Improve our communication. One of the things I talked about before is our website. The website they're using, it's really antiquated. I know there's work to be done on it, and work is going to be done on it, but it's taking a long time. I find it very cumbersome to go through it, look through all the minutes, try to find information from last year or this year. It's not an easy task. So that's one thing that we could start with and do better. My other goals are, of course, to facilitate change when I get there. I don't expect that I can do it by myself, and obviously we need there's 9 of us to make that decision, but I hope that we can make the decision based on what's best for our children in this district, and they need to come first. What sets me apart? I think it's simply the fact that, again, like I said, I've been a parent in this district. I've experienced all levels of academia in the district, and I also experienced it myself. And I'm a proud proponent of this district. I love South Orange and Maplewood. I think it's a beautiful place to grow up. I remember looking at this report that said we were the top 25 in the country or the nation to live, and I thought, how impressive is that? But I know that had a lot to do with how our schools are. And I hope that we can get back to a place where we're not on the news for anything except for being the best, and having the most amazing children that come out of this district. And despite however we are, we do have amazing children that come out of this district.
Thank you, Nora. And
live in South Orange. I've lived here for 18 years, which sort of freaks me out just a little bit, because it feels like yesterday. I have 4 kids in the district. 2 have gone through, and I have 2 still in. I have a 7th grader in South Orange Middle, and I have a 5th grader at South Mountain. So I have a lot of experience, much like Narda, a lot of experience taking kids all the way through, and I'm in round 2 of it. I love our towns. I really do. I volunteer as much as I possibly can, really active with downtown South Orange, volunteering with Board of Trustees. At the same time, I currently sit on the Board of Directors for Cougar Soccer. I give back every single chance I can. And this, for me, is much more of that. I'm a big believer and a big cheerleader for the towns that we have. In terms of qualifications, my background is communications. I do marketing communications on a global scale. I am known for creating collaborations and coalitions to affect change. I am the person who I've won awards for taking moments and turning them into movements. And that's something that I think, quite honestly, is needed in our town. One of my big goals is definitely about restoring communication, but communication as a way to build trust. I think that over the past year, we have had at least four pretty hot inflection points within our district. I would dare say, if we were to grade how they were handled from a communications, an integration, a transparency, they would be solid Ds. And all of that results in more negative coverage. If you Google South Orange Maplewood School District, we need to get back to the point where we have pride and that we trust what the board and what the administration is doing. The idea of say what you're going to do what you said you were going to do, and then tell me again how great it was. So this idea of measuring what matters. I know that we're talking now about bringing a data warehouse into district. The fact that we have so little data readily available to analyze, to understand how anything is working in our school district, the good or the bad, is an abject failure, and something that I would not allow to continue, much like everybody else up here, I would imagine. One of the things that I'm really excited about in terms of running today, or running with this group, as a collective, we're standing on the threshold of massive change for our district. We have the ability to fix what has been left to be broken, correct the way that we communicate, and really find a way to fix the things that can only be described as black eyes in our district. But it's going to take new voices. It's going to take new people doing things differently, because over the past easily 15 years that I've been actively involved in our districts, we have been consistent in how we have made choices. We have been consistent in how we have let down our students. We have been consistent in how we have allowed the connections between school and home, and I don't mean just students' home, I mean all homes. We've allowed that to just fray. That would be one of the very first things I would want to tackle in terms of a goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Okay, Shannon?
Here, need more?
I tried to make the wire so no one would trip on them. I'm sorry. We don't have a few more mics.
Javier. I'm sorry, Javier. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Takes everybody working together. Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon Cuddle. First, I want to thank you all tonight for coming out, being part of this conversation. I'd like to thank the Hilton Neighborhood Association for hosting tonight, this community forum. And I would like to thank all of my other fellow candidates up here on the stage tonight. I'm happy to see that we're all here together and we can have really great, robust conversations. So, my experience and background, so I'm a lifelong educator. So I've been involved in education policy, and working with youth and families for 22 years. It is my life's work and passion. And I've done that in the classroom, I've done that as a school administrator, and I've done that as a policy leader and a community organizer, which led me from Michigan to Washington, D.C., where in Washington, D.C. I had the privilege to be able to work on educational policy, creating inclusive, safer, welcoming schools for all students and families. And what that means, creating safe schools for families, that means we're creating spaces that students can thrive inside, outside of the classroom, that all students, all learners, diverse learners, that we're creating spaces inside the classroom where the curricula represents the student body that's diverse, where teachers have support systems in place. Safe schools means that we're creating an overall climate and culture where we're really moving towards excellence for all students, and we're moving our climate in a way where we're trying to be 21st century learners. So with that work in Washington, D.C., I had the privilege and honor not just to work with organizations from the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Human Rights Campaign, GLSEN, also had the honor and privilege to be able to do supportive measures with other groups such as the Congressional Anti-Bullying Caucus, be able to work with members of the Obama administration, to be able to create inclusive, safer schools for students and families across the country. One of the most things I'm proud of is I was the architect of the DC Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. DC's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights is actually the first citywide anti-bullying policy in the country. It covers colleges, universities, public schools. It covers subways, all public transportation, buses, parks, and libraries. And what that did was not just create anti-bullying posters to put up, but we devised a plan collectively together with all human service agencies, social service agencies, the government of the District of Columbia, through the mayor's office, and the DC Department of Education, to be able to create spaces where students could leave their front door at 7 a.m., take public transportation to school, go throughout their school day, then be able to, after school, enjoy after-school programs at a park, or go to the library, and then come home again. And then there were staff on site that were trained, not just in crisis prevention and remediation, but be doing de-escalation techniques and doing crisis prevention for students that need it, and overall help change that climate and culture in all of those services, public services that a student would use throughout the day that would help them thrive and be successful. That policy became a model for others across the country, and that led to me being recruited to New Jersey by an organization called Garden State Equality, which is our statewide civil rights organization, to help work on the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights and also work on additional youth and family policies within the state of New Jersey. I came here in 2013, and I made my roots in Maplewood, South Orange, and I have been honored to be a part of this community. I hit the ground running since I was here, and the work that I do with school districts, agencies, colleges, universities, government bodies across the country led me to want to invest that same passion into our local community. I had families come to me, students and others, saying that they needed support measures in place. And that led me to be involved directly into the community, and to this day, where most of the work that I do within our community has really led me to be involved across the school district and across our two towns.
Thank you. And now Javier.
Hello. All right. Hi, everyone. It's all about me right now, isn't it? So my name is Javier Farfan. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for hosting us and having this experience here to talk about the issues of our community and our district. So 3 questions, right? What are my qualifications? I am 3.5 years in the community. I moved here with my wife, Natalie, and my son, Jonah Wolf. He is 4.5 years old and will be joining the district in a year. My qualifications, I kind of break it up into 2 pieces. One is education has been such a big part of my journey as a person I come from very humble beginnings. My family came from Ecuador to New York City, and they valued education very much and pushed me to make sure that I did well. And I found a second home in those institutions. And through that, and through the teachers that really believed in me, gave me the fortitude to become the person I became. I got a BA from SUNY Binghamton, a master's in organizational psychology from Teachers College, Columbia University, which I got a scholarship for, very proud of that. And then I got an executive MBA from NYU Stern School of Business in finance and marketing. So that wouldn't have been done if I didn't have that infrastructure to support me. And I want to pay it forward. And I've been paying it forward since I was in college. I started a nonprofit helping inner city youth find mentors in college to motivate them to go to college in New York City called Jump Nation. I started it in my college dorm room. I thought it was going to be something I did for 4 years. It became a 25-year institution, a 20-year institution. I was actually, a couple of years ago I went there, I was the honoree. I didn't think it was going to create that much impact, but it impacted 2,000 kids. I'm very proud of that. I started a high school in New York City through a competitive grant program to get females, young women, to understand what business is all about, and it was a high school. It's now 12 years in existence in Wall Street, and it was primarily to get inner city women of color access to the idea of what business and access to business as a whole. And currently, I'm an adjunct professor at Seton Hall. So I want to continue that path. And I think this is a natural progression to that. Outside of that volunteer work that I've done, I also have worked in Fortune 50 companies. I've worked at Verizon for a couple of years. I've worked at Microsoft, PepsiCo as a marketing and communication executive with a strong understanding of communication, a strong understanding of change management, and I believe those skills are going to be very useful to whoever gets voted in. When I'm voted in, if you guys bless me with your vote, I will use that to make sure that we move the agenda forward that the current board, the interim superintendent is actually doing now. So what are my goals? So my goals is to make this the model district in the nation. I think we have an opportunity to do that. We're a diverse community. How much time do I have?
13 seconds.
Okay, sorry. We're a diverse community. We have the makings of making this great. We've done a great amount of work currently. Somebody needs to take it forward. Somebody needs to operationalize that. I have the experience to do that type of work. So, and I'm a person of color, and I want to put that representation in the mix. You know, as a Latino man, you know, I understand what it is to come from humble beginnings and create a place of success. And I want to play that forward for my community, for my kid, and for all the kids in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First, thanks to the Hilton Neighborhood Association for hosting this event and for everyone who's come out here tonight to listen. It's been a great campaign so far. I've actually gotten to know some of the candidates, which is interesting because sometimes you don't necessarily get to know everyone, but I think it's been a good ride so far. Let's just talk about goals. I'll tell you about who I am in a minute. Let's talk about goals. This district has the potential of being the premier district of New Jersey. We have all the ingredients to do that. Yet, we are not. We're failing. We're ranked 72 in the state, district-wide. Our high school is ranked 74th. Those numbers alone should tell you, as a district, we are failing. As a board, we are not innovative and putting in plan the factors to make this district better. We have an achievement gap issue. We have a facilities issue. We have a capacity issue. We have a retention and hiring of teacher issue. These are all standard things that have been going on the board for years. without much change. I sit up here tonight along with 7 other candidates, 6 of which who are not sitting on the board today. And I recommend to you that we look to bring in 3 new board members. We need change in this district. We have to do things differently. We have to look at things differently. We have to open our eyes to what's not working and figure out what's best for the children. If I get an opportunity to sit on this board, what you're going to see is a passionate individual who has spent the last 3 months since I decided to run educating myself on what the struggles are of this district, what we are doing differently than some of our competitors in other districts that are excelling. And to me, that's what we need to be doing as a board, looking out at what works well and how do we implement change. We also need to have a vision, a clear vision of the district. We cannot change ideas every year and be reactionary to things that aren't working. We implement ideas, we try them for a couple years, and then we change. That's not good leadership. That's not what's making the district great. I'm a product of the district. I've lived in Maplewood and South Orange for over 30 years. I went through the educational sector. I graduated in 1990. I am a proud Columbia High School graduate. But I am disappointed beyond belief about the product that we are giving our children today. I have 4 kids in the district. I have an 8th grader, a 7th grader, a 5th grader, and a 1st grader. Yes, I am crazy, my wife and I, for having 4 kids. We know it. But we love it, and we love this community. I volunteer, I coach as much as I possibly can the youth of this community. I spend my free time helping those to make them better people. But I will tell you something about coaching. It's about teaching people how to work as teammates, how to have good sportsmanship, how to become better at the sport you're playing. But there's one thing that we always need to focus in on is, the goal at some point is to win. Otherwise, why play? We need to win as a district. We're not right now. We are struggling. Look at our numbers, look at our rankings, look at where we're going, and ask yourself, do you want to be part of change or part of the norm? When you ask about qualifications, one of the biggest important hires that's going to happen in this district is the new superintendent. This is in a key position for us, the CEO of South Orange Maplewood School District. He, she, or they is going to be the visionary to take this district to the next level. I'm a professional recruiter. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I bring a unique skill set that no one else on this board has. That is going to be my key focus, along with addressing all the issues we need to by collaborating with the 9 board members in a room, fighting for our beliefs, our ideas, and change. I hope I earned your vote. I'd love to talk to you more offline. Thank you.
So in case you don't know, I am the sitting board member on the board today. That's our Michael. Part of what I love about this community is that our parents and our children are engaged and attempt to be creating a vibrant community. So I appreciate that. I am fortunate to have deep roots in this community. I moved here only 14 years ago with my husband and 2 wonderful children. Dilshar just graduated the high school and Sumer is a junior. I have a long history of volunteer work in our school district. I was the treasurer of Marshall PTA. I served as the HSA co-president at SOMS, and I was an executive committee board member on President's Council. I am vice president of the West Montrose Neighborhood Association, and I proudly organized all the neighborhoods to form an umbrella group called SONA so that we could address issues across all our neighborhoods. I also was on YouthNet with Lisa, and I'm currently the treasurer of the Library Foundation, and I was a founding volunteer for the Best Day in South Orange, Play Day South Orange. These experiences inform all the decisions I have made on the board, and they have allowed me to build a network of people I can call on to seek alternative opinions and allow me to leverage the diversity of experiences that our community offers. I have relied on this feedback from community members to help me grow as a board member as well. Asking to serve your community doesn't mean that you have all the answers or that your way is always right. It means gathering opinions, fleshing out your own positions, and acknowledging your biases from your experiences or culturally, and then working toward bringing all board members together on a plan that gives clear direction to the superintendent. I'm the proud director and owner of a local preschool, South Orange Country Day. This role has allowed me to blend my education, my bachelor's degree in math, my master's degree in math from Syracuse, and my MBA from Cornell, with my 10 years of work experience at JPMorgan Chase. Being at the preschool also provides me a daily reminder of what is possible when children and families feel safe, valued, and respected. It has also allowed me to be connected to many families in the district as they begin their journey. I actually believe the district is making progress toward creating a great learning environment for all our children that includes creating a respected learning and working environment for our staff as well. So how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? First, we do need to hire a superintendent with successful experience in a district like ours, who is a strong manager of large organizations, who can implement a comprehensive change management plan, and who can mentor and inspire all our district staff. Second, we need to lay a foundation for the adults in the buildings to be responsible for creating positive relationships with children, families, and each other. This means mentoring school leadership teams to make their schools places where all children's needs are met and where children and families feel valued and welcome. This work will further our commitment to creating the climate and culture of learning and respect that supports all children and will support the district's work to make our curriculum and classroom experience culturally reflective and responsive to our students. And third, we need to successfully implement our integration plan for our schools so that each student and each staff member will be able to capitalize on the diversity of experiences that our community offers. This moves us from liking to see diversity to actually leveraging diverse experiences in the classroom. This will also continue to support the implementation of access and equity policy. The first part of the policy made it possible for children to be able to select any level of instruction that was available without any barriers. This was an important first step in our community as it addressed the idea that those kids who want the opportunity will seek it out. But the real power of this policy was the work to be done to ensure our curriculum, classroom supports, and family-school relationships support all children to achieve. That is the work that is underway, and I am proud to be part of the board shepherding that work, and I look forward to the next steps of the journey. Thank you.
And now Bruno.
Hi, first of all, thank you all for showing up tonight. I know it takes an effort because we all have busy schedules, and thank you to the Hilton Neighborhood Association for organizing. I love to see this level of community involvement. My name is Bruno Navarro, and I have been a journalist for most of my life, and most of that time as a reporter. I've worked everywhere from Asbury Park to Tempe, Arizona, to Grand Forks, North Dakota, and I've covered school boards all across the country. Rarely do you see this level of involvement in a community. One of the things that that really stuck out for me was transparency. My daughter is in first grade, and it only took a year for me to see that the district needed help in 3 areas. It needed help in transparency, in accountability, and in dignity. And the reasons that I say this is because you know, from the get-go, there was upheaval in with staff changes. We had lockdown drills that parents weren't even notified about, even after the fact, at our school. And we also had overcrowding. We moved into a house on Midland Boulevard, and we were quote-unquote zoned for Clinton. You know, we talked to all the families in the neighborhood, and you know, kept hearing what a great school it was, and we were so excited to go there. Of course, when it came time to register our daughter, there was no room. They had filled up, and so we had to pick another school. We ended up going to Marshall, and we love it. It's our daughter fell in love with a kindergarten teacher, and we were just over the moon. However, it quickly became evident that there were gaps in how the whole system was run, and I figured that asking questions and writing letters to the superintendent and the school board, to the director of security would get answers, and I would get the clarity that I needed. I wanted to know, we need, as parents, I want to know what is going on with my kid, and when my daughter comes home and tells us that there was an animal in the room and they had to hide, it's very confusing. It's very confusing to get information about what's happening in the classroom from a 5-year-old. She's 6 now, but it's still a little tough. And I had no clarity, and the more I talked to parents, the more they were unaware, and we heard that students had been traumatized by this experience, that some children did not even want to mention it, did not even want to speak about it, and it broke my heart to know that children were being traumatized in these institutions of learning. Other parents at different schools had different experiences. One school, I understand, had a robocall. One school had email sent out to parents after the fact, offering them suggestions of how to talk to their children about this event. We had no such instruction. Part of it was probably because we had an acting principal at the time, but this should have been a district policy, and for the communication to be lacking in to such a degree, when we entrust our children, there's nothing more important than our children. We're entrusting them to this administration that doesn't tell us what's going on. It was a very difficult thing to deal with. And when I look at the history of the superintendent selection over the past couple of superintendents, there was a lack of due diligence that needed to be done, and I think that that's something that's important for the next one. And by due diligence, I mean taking a deep dive into what this person's background is going to be, what history they have, and what kind of track record they left at their previous in their previous district. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher has a cold, but he's here anyway. Thank you.
I am. I apologize in advance for anyone that can't hear me. But I'm going to muddle through this. And I did get medical clearance. I'm good. Like, I'm not contagious. I've been a resident of Maplewood for about 14 years. I've had the pleasure of seeing my kids, Christopher and Katie, go through the district all the way throughout, from first grade. Actually, at the time when they started, there wasn't kindergarten for all. All the way up now there, Katie's a freshman at Columbia, and CJ is a senior, God help me, at Columbia. So I've seen them thrive in the district, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, as I know it has with everybody, for the last 11 or 12 years. And I've gained a lot of personal experience, riding that roller coaster with them in the schools, in their activities, helping out. And that's helped inform my views on the district itself and the comings and goings. And I've paid attention to a lot of the administrative stuff as I've gone along, not just necessarily with the classroom related stuff. On qualifications, I think that's something that also sets me apart. I think they're unique. I think they're timely, particularly now. For the past 20-odd years, I've worked in the operational risk management field for a number of global banks globally. I've been Paris, Barcelona, Germany, in the UK, Ireland, and then all across the United States, dealing with a myriad of issues across the board. And the role has been one of a firefighter, one of a rolling help desk, one of a policy analyst, one of a governance specialist, dealing with regulators, dealing with severe financial constraints. And the diversity in terms of those experiences and the various financial environments fraught with the unpredictability, the pressures, the competing priorities, the tight deadlines. This is sort of the day-to-day work. And to be successful, you have to be a nonlinear thinker, I think, to get through that. You got to be capable of learning issues, dimensioning issues right away, framing them quickly. You need an analytic eye for detail. You need an instinct, or what I would call an instinct for inquiry. This is knowing the right data sets to gather to inform an opinion, knowing the right, most pointed questions to ask to quickly get at a solution, and not wasting time in the weeds, and eventually pushing these various problems to resolution. And some of these problems are pretty global in nature, and some of them are small, and I think they kind of mirror a lot of what we're looking at in the district now in terms of long-term impact and short-term impact. I graduated from Boston College with a double major in philosophy and English. People look at me like I'm crazy in terms of going into international banking. I did start as political science and economics, but I dropped them when it got into beer and pizza, supply and demand curves, and I couldn't deal with it. But I think that's where I developed the inquiry-based mindset that I have today, that critical mindset. And I think it translates seamlessly to the work of the board and the many initiatives to be undertaken in the near term, not least with the imminent bonding, the budgetary pressures we've got to deal with year on year, hiring, particularly obviously with this new superintendent, policy review, which is a critical function of the board, and so on. We're facing incredible concurrent challenges right now. I mean, there are many, many major balls in the air right now in the district. And again, it's hiring that superintendent with so much that's weighing on it in terms of you know, the myriad hires that they're going to be responsible for, all the tasks and issues that are going to be sitting, waiting their attention. We've got what I think is a once-in-a-generation capital plan that we need to look at. I have more questions on it than answers, and I'm going to rush if I can. We've got integration planning and execution. We've got a nasty, stubbornly persistent achievement gap and equity issues that we just can't seem to fight correctly and fix. And I think we need to do that. I mean, these are my goals. So, I mean, I think what the board needs now are independent thinkers. I think they need folks that can tackle tough, contentious decisions with increased transparency, with communication, effective communication and partnership with residents, with taxpayers, with students, and everyone else. I'm getting yelled at. But I hope to be somebody who can meet those coming challenges and juggle all these balls in the air, and I appreciate the time. Thanks.
And now we have a chance for you to ask some specific questions. And the way we do this is, if you want to ask a specific candidate, you can do that. If you want to ask the whole board, we ask everyone to speak quickly. And if someone on the board wants to add something, even though they haven't been asked, feel free. We don't want you to make speeches when you give the question. Please just ask the question, or I have to get rude, which I don't want to do. And so I think we'll start from there. Yes.
How much time? And can they use your mic so we can hear can they come up to your stand so we can hear the question when they ask?
People from the audience.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very good suggestion.
Okay. You've done this a few times.
Yeah, right.
We really didn't figure that out. Let's just say
Reasonable.
what?
Reasonable.
Reasonable time, or probably about 2 minutes. Okay, that's reasonable. Okay, now, does anyone have a question? And would you like to direct it to someone?
Come up to the mic, please.
Yes. Please give your name.
I don't think I need the mic. I have a three-part question. Do you?
It's not for us. It's for the recording.
They can hear me on the other side. Three-part question. Would you or would you not envision, if things go right, that in 5 to 7 years 90+% of kids at Columbia High School will be taking honors courses, are capable of honors courses. The second part is what do teachers have to do in the classroom to be successful with all kids, to get to the point where all kids are achieving at a high level? And the third part of the question is, what does the board have to do to get teachers to do that? You can answer it. You know the answer to that question.
Did you want to direct it to any particular?
No, I'd like to actually hear from all candidates.
Okay. So,
It's going to be more than 2 minutes.
no. Well, 2 minutes for
That's
first.
a fair question.
What?
It's the middle one, I don't think is a fair question. How can they know what will get teachers to perform better? That's not what the board does. It's not their job to do that. They have to hire people who know how to do that.
Well, let them respond the way they feel. Okay, does anyone want to start off, or we'll start at the other end? 2 minutes. Okay, let's start with Kristen.
Do I think it's possible? I absolutely think it's possible. I see no reason why it's not possible. The only thing that I think stands in its way are the, number one, funding. It's not to say that you can throw money at every single problem, I get that, but on the other hand, we need supports. And Maplewood is not necessarily Rockville Center, where we could jack the tax rates up almost 2 digits, and that we've got an unlimited supply of cash to throw at a given problem. If we could, to some extent, even if we could, I don't know that we would, because you've got obviously residential concerns that you need to deal with. You've got the capital plan, you've got a lot of other stuff, but I think you need, number one, you've got to upgrade the curriculum. I think you need to strengthen the curriculum. I don't think that you look at it from a standpoint of hitting the state's bare minimum so that we can be compliant. Giving credit to the board, and I think I did the last time, and I'll do it again. There were 147 that the board had reviewed, that folks had prepared and gotten up to snuff, but I think now that the next stage is to bring that stuff fully current, make it more challenging. I think a lot of insight and input needs to get into that in order to get that curriculum up there. Without the framework, I don't think you have a basis that you can, that you could work from. I think you need to do that. And while it's very easy to say, well, we're just going to throw the curriculum out there and then hold everybody to it, we need to empower teachers, we need to empower administrators, and we need to empower students with the tools that they're going to need in order to be able to do that. Would I want to see it in 5 to 7 years? Absolutely. I think if we could do it sooner, we do it sooner and make it 3 to 5. Given the upheaval, given the new superintendent, I'm not entirely sure that 3 is realistic. I mean, you could throw years out there, but I don't know if it matters. But 5 to 7 sounds eminently doable. In terms of the board getting there, I think that's part of it, right? Vis-a-vis the curriculum, I think you need to look at it in terms of strengthening policy. I also think you need to look at it, I'll be quick, in terms of the finances and pushing back to try and squeeze out what we can, where we can, to make sure that we in fact can support it financially, fiscally over a 5-year plan, and that means actually having a 5-year plan to do it.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Move on. Thank you.
Tough question for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. 2 minutes.
That's an ambitious timeline, and realistically, that would be very tough to get to a 90% rate, especially with a new superintendent coming in, and it takes time to learn the ropes. It'll take a good 2 or 3 years to have everybody in place, to have all the administrators who are now on an interim basis selected and working together and moving forward. Would I like to see it? Of course. I don't think there's anybody on this board who wouldn't want to see that. The amount of talent and creativity and resources that this community has, it's incredible. And I could imagine it, but that's going to depend on how we pick the next superintendent. When it comes to the teacher's question, professional development is absolutely essential, and I would be interested to see what the budget constraints would allow. But once you have professional development in place, you can tackle a lot of the issues that the district is facing, and and that needs to happen too. The facilities, I think, is part of that. When prospective teachers see crumbling ceilings and old boilers and crumbling concrete structures and rotting window frames, that I don't think that is going to help that cause any. So that's why I think the facilities plan is absolutely essential. We've let these things go on for too long, and it boggles the mind in a community with so many resources that it would be pushed on year after year after year after year after year. None of these problems happened overnight. And it's going to take a while to fix them too. It just takes the political will.
Thank you. Anne Marie?
So I guess I would answer that as that is who we're going to hire. We are going to hire the person who believes that all children can learn at a high level. We're going to hire someone who believes that giving the classroom teachers the tools and the resources and the motivation to hold high expectations for all students, and the curriculum is culturally responsive, and that every adult in every building knows that it's their job to create an environment where kids can feel valued, safe, and respected. That's the only way they're going to learn. And the other thing about hiring the superintendent, as with this interim that we hired, he found the money. He went to the teachers and he said, what do you need? And the teachers came back and said, we need smaller class sizes. This is math and science. We need smaller class sizes, we need in-school supports for students, and we need technology in the classroom. And what did this superintendent do? He found the extra money by a grant, he found money for the technology, and he also was able to structure the schedule so that all students could go to academic labs during the school day. And on top of that, he found more money to move a full-time guidance counselor to work with teachers and the students and the people in the academic labs to make it easy for children to get there, right? When you're not good at math, doing another period of math is not on the top of your list, right? So having a relationship with a guidance counselor, another adult in the building to really encourage you to go and attend, create that relationship, create that feedback loop, that's how we're going to move the district forward. And I absolutely believe that 5 to 7 years is way too long. We need to figure out how to do this. We need to stop talking about the achievement gap as if it's even acceptable. It's all our children. All our children can be capable of learning.
Michael?
Hey. Mr. Latz, can you repeat the question about the 90%? I want to make sure I understand what you were asking.
You think it's possible with the right leadership in the district in a 5 to 7 year time frame that 90% of students at Columbia High School will be taking honors level classes?
And can I just ask a follow-up? Is there a goal that they're passing the classes or just taking the classes? I'm just curious.
That part is up to you.
Okay. So first off and foremost, we have to address this issue of getting our children, especially from the achievement gap standpoint, at an earlier age. We have children in this district that are reading a year or two behind their grade level in reading and math. We're not helping them by putting them into the middle school when they can't read or perform math skills at their grade level. So the district has to make a real serious commitment. Anne Marie just said it. It's time to put up or shut up, okay? We've been talking about the achievement gap in this district for years, and we've done very little to improve it. Look at the PARCC results for the last year. Look at the results if you follow any of the groups for a 3-year period. Are those groups improving? Look at the 5th grade. Follow them from 3rd, 4th, and 5th. How are they improving? We've got a real problem here. We've got to figure out how to improve it at an earlier age, so when the children are getting into middle school and into high school, that we can give them a solid platform to be successful. Our job is, as board members, is to help steer the district in what's going to help the district become better. Hiring the superintendent, absolutely. That is the individual who's going to hire the administrators and build a team around them to make this school better, this school district better. I would love nothing more to see 90% of the kids in the honors classes, but I also want them excelling in the honors classes. So if we're going to look at that, let's look at results. Let's look at scores, and let's put numbers around that. I'd love 100% of the kids to be in honors class, but that doesn't mean they're going to be doing well, okay? Teachers need professional development. Teachers need smaller classrooms. They need additional support. Those are all things we have to do as a district. We've got to set the standard and hold to it. And again, we keep flip-flopping. Every year we have a new flavor of what we're going to do. Let's pick our mind, let's set our standards, and let's hold each other accountable. Transparency, accountability, and change. That's what everyone's talking about in the community. Let's do it, okay? We can do it, but we can't just all of a sudden say we're going to have 90% of the kids in the class and assume it's going to work. That's not the way to do things.
Thank you. Let's go on to...
Yes, that's the vision. I think everybody wants that to be the vision of the district, but I think it starts with two things. One of them is leadership, hiring the right person, creating that vision and putting an actionable plan towards that vision. You know, we need to make sure that we keep everybody accountable on how we're going to get there. We can just talk about a goal and not show the path forward. And really kind of driving everybody to really focus on doing it as a community. It's not just the board's policy, it's not just the leadership, it's the parents, it's the students. Everybody has to have that common vision and how it's going to benefit everybody. So I think that's important. The second piece of it is we need to focus on the operational side of how to get there, right? So continuing to improve the curriculum, using kind of data to kind of support understanding how to make sure that we're attacking the problem per student. What do they need? What resources and support they need from the information that we have to get them to that point. Start younger. I think that's a great point. Don't start, you know, as they're progressing up there. Start at the grade school, middle school level. Empowerment of the teachers, professional development, retention plans, career paths within, you know, our district. And I think there needs to be a common philosophy as a district that all children can do this. You know, I think that sometimes people, you know, put, hey, those kids can't, these kids could. Everybody needs to be on that common vision that everybody can get there. And we need to be educated, the faculty needs to be educated on different learning styles and how to apply that within their lessons plans. And then this idea of just supporting the kids, giving all the resources to make those things happen. Thank you.
Shannon?
Well, I think the first step to answer that question is that we, as a district, we need to create a roadmap in order to make SOMSD excellence, bring excellence to our district. And that's going to start with making sure that we are focusing on climate and culture. And what that looks like is, what is our mission, what is our vision, our values as a district? What are we looking for within ourselves, and what do we look for in our students? And that's going to be guided by leadership. It's going to be guided by leadership and how we choose the next superintendent, who's going to be that guiding force. For us, members of the board, one of the sole main purposes that we do is to be able to set policy and set goals for the district that is now then implemented and driven by the superintendent. And that is going to need to do, we mean that we need to take moral courage in order to do the hard things that we need to do in order to move us as a district into the 21st century. And that means we have to look at ways that we're closing the achievement gap. That means that we have to bring excellence across our district. That means we have to make sure K through 12 that our district inside and out, our classrooms, our hallways, our teachers, our leadership represent the diverse population and families that live here. And we have to actively recruit high-quality educators and leaders from outside of our district that match our same mission, vision, and values, and are going to be able to execute those goals to make sure that we can get to excellence. We can get to that excellence in 5 to 7 years, and we can move from being a district that is not even in the top 50 in the state of New Jersey in the recent NJ.com poll that they released the other week, but we can move towards being in the top 10 and then being number one, and being a true model and example for the rest of the state of New Jersey. It also means that we need to invest in support systems for students, but also investing in support systems for all educators and leaders. Teachers cannot be successful in the classroom if they do not have support, as much as students can't be successful in the classroom if they don't have support systems in place K through 12. But we have to take that investment now for that long-range goal at the end, which is making sure that all of our students thrive inside, outside of the classroom, and that we become the model district and move it forward.
Thank you. Marion?
Sure. I want to try and actually frame this. We don't need to be repeating so much of it. I think there are a couple things. The idea of 90%, if I repeat this correctly, Steve, 90% of students at Columbia High School taking honors courses. I would say 90%, it's a big, hairy goal. It's a big, hairy goal only because if you go back 5 years, in order to imagine who will be at Columbia in 5 years' time, that means it is our current 4th to 7th graders. That's who we're talking about. And if you look at our current performance scores, the achievement gap, currently between 23 and 42% of our 4th graders do not read at grade level. I want you to really think about that. Right now, 4th graders, based on the current PARCC scores, between 23 and 42% do not read at grade level based on proficiency levels. So if we want to do this, that means us actually tackling, and someone has said it up here, we tackle the achievement gap straight on. We make sure that every single 3rd and 4th grader, and keep going up, is reading at grade level. We put the support services in place. But you know what we also do? We make sure that every single person in our community knows that our goal is that we want 90% of all high school students taking and excelling honors courses. That means that it is repeated. It's repeated on the walls in every one of our high school. It's repeated as a narrative by every single one of our teachers. It's repeated as a narrative by every single school administrator. So therefore, when the parent gets something home, by the way, we're doing this, we're doing that, we have this program, it's because we want to make sure that when your kid hits high school, they're ready and excelling at advanced classes. So it's about walking the walk, it's about mirroring the words, it's about setting, reinforcing, reinstating, repeating the expectation. But more important, or equally importantly, we have got to then measure it. If it is a big, hairy goal, 1 year from now, you know what? I'm telling you, it's 23 to 42% are not at proficiency. 1 year from now, that same cohort, we had better have moved it, or else we are failing, and we'll know in year 1.
Thank you. Norda.
So, 90%. So, obviously, we'd all want to see the 90%. And everybody's echoed the same sentiments that they'd like to see it, but needs to be measurable. So what I think about that, I think about the 90%, how it affects my children currently, my twins that are in honors, my twins that are not doing that well in honors, and are not supported that well in honors right now. So I think about that when we talk about the 90%. I think about the fact that what happens to a child who doesn't have the support systems in place, they don't want to stay in the class. They want to go down to the next level. And that breaks my heart, because I want to make sure, now I have to go out of my way to figure out, you know, I need to get tutoring for my kid. So you talk about the 90%, and this has been an ongoing thing about the achievement gap. And we're right, it starts in the elementary schools. I will tell you that my experiences with the elementary schools have been amazing. I had the opportunity to be in, my children had the multi-age experience, and out of 5 kids, 2 of them had that experience. And I'll tell you, those are my 2 kids that have achieved academic success. And I can't say it's because of the multi-age, but I have a strong belief that it's a critical part of how our schools are at an elementary level and how well our kids can do. I think it's something that we need to speak to more of our teachers about. I don't understand why it's not a part of every elementary school. I really would like to understand why that isn't the case. There's lots of success with those programs, and I think we need to figure out how to invest in and do that and talk to our teachers more. You talk about how do you change the teachers, ensure the teachers are successful with the kids. We have to address the other issues that we're not saying right now is yes, it's professional development, but it has to be focused on implicit bias and unconscious bias. At the end of the day, we all have biases, and in the classroom, that could be the case. You'll have a child that now wants to be in the honors class, that's in that honors class, and a teacher that's used to only having kids that really know how to do well in honors class and can't handle it. So, and that could stem from implicit or unconscious bias, and that's the things that we have to address head on. So, I'm with everybody here that says, hey, we want to hit that 90%, or the man in the back that said that, but we have to think about all the other factors within that 90%.
Thank you.
Carol,
We have another question.
Carol, may I just make a comment about elementary school along these conversations, or do you want to move on?
I'd like to move on.
Hi everyone, my name is Candace Davenport, and I just have two questions, totally unrelated, but part of the job of a Board of Education member is collective bargaining and dealing with the teachers' unions, and currently our teachers are not under contract. They are working without an updated contract. So in order to support the teachers, what is your experience with collective bargaining and union contracts? That's one. The second question is, we talk about the achievement gap and closing that in the elementary school, and we have awesome programs at the high school, but there's this middle school challenge. And so I'd like to ask you, what are some of your thoughts on how to enhance our middle school experience so that we catapult them into academic success in high school? And what are your thoughts on unique challenges, as some of you already have middle schoolers or seen that challenge itself firsthand? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Javier in the middle.
Okay.
We'll move to this direction.
So go this way. After that. Okay. So collective. Tough questions, thank you though. Collective bargaining. No, I don't have experience with that. I do have experience in negotiation and in collaborating and dealing with contracts just through my professional experience. I have a small experience when I'm working at Verizon, dealing with unions and figuring out how to make sure that we get to a right point in regards to the relationship between management and employees. So I've had those experiences, but not within what you're asking for specifically. One. The second question, remind me again.
Middle school.
Middle school. That's a tough one, but as I think about middle school, I think we have to. It goes back to support again. I do think that we need to focus on enrichment programs, providing them the right level of support if they're not achieving the goals that they need to. I think it's important to start focusing on making sure that they understand the pathway forward beyond high school, and start that at the middle school. The experience that I had with Jump Nation was about really providing them full context of how education could be beneficial in the long run. I think it's an important thing to start having those type of conversations at that point in time, and then also providing the right type of tutoring support and the right type of guidance alongside not just the teachers, but folks to make sure that they're giving them the adequate level of instruction when they're falling behind.
Thank you. Shannon?
Okay, first one. So collective bargaining. So not here locally, so someone who has been an educator. I have been in a teachers union before, and I had someone who's an administrator. I've also worked with unions on staffing needs. On the flip side of that, I also was somebody who's been involved in working with contract negotiations, and at the same time, I've had a very wonderful relationship with the NEA and helping support them and working with them through the years on everything from talking about safe schools in the classroom, anti-bullying policies, and other. So I've been around inside and cursory around on the outside of dealing with teachers unions for a long time. In regards to the middle school question, so I know some of the students from MMS and SOMS have shared with me challenges that they've seen at both schools, where they're experiencing not just bullying, harassment, intimidation, but things such as challenges within hearing racially charged comments, anti-Semitic comments, anti-LGBT comments in the hallways, being in the lunchroom, dealing with conflict resolution, not knowing what teachers they can talk to, parents coming to me for advice and support saying, you know, Shannon, I don't know who to talk to about this particular issue that I have with my child's teacher or my guidance counselor or the principal. And through that has come, a lot that's come forward is that for middle school students, specifically in our district here, one of the things that we can do is try to help create that climate and culture of equity, respect, and understanding, and being able to not just teach anti-bias education for students and staff, but also really truly commit to making sure we're creating student leaders that are empowered, and being able to let those student leaders that are empowered be able to listen to us, being able to listen to them, I should say, and hear what their needs are. That's one of the things we don't do really well as a district, is making sure we have a lot of adults that speak for students, but we don't actually take the time to listen to students and ask them what they're seeing, what their needs are, what they need and want in the district. And I think that's one of the things that we could do, is empower students to be able to listen to those student voices at the elementary, and middle school, and at the high school level, so we can really evaluate and see what their needs are.
Thank you. Marion.
I do not have experience with collective bargaining. Much like everybody else up here, I've definitely negotiated contracts. I've negotiated global contracts. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts. But leaving that part aside, and in no way do I want to dismiss it, I think that the biggest thing is our teachers don't feel respected. And if I could, our administrators don't do an awful lot to make them feel respected. I was surprised when you said that we are yet again at a point where we don't have a contract. The fact that, and for those who are new to it, I'm not kidding, yet again. It's every time the contract is allowed to lapse, we beg and plead and ask the teachers to work that contract in good faith, only to them then ultimately come to them and say, all right, we'll get a contract, but you need to give us something back. So that pattern and practice has to be stopped. Because that has been in place, again, for the 15 years that I've been active in this district. That is ridiculous at this point. So the best answer I could possibly give, I do have a level of awareness. Middle school, we joke around in my house. I'm on my third kid going through middle school, and middle school is this black hole that I just hate. And I have one more who goes to middle school next year. One of the biggest challenges for me as a family, you know, an N of one, is that there's so much hand-holding in elementary school. Like you know everything that's happening in the classroom. You know your teacher, you know about recess, you know about you know the names of the lunch aides. It's warm and it's cozy and it's a blanket. And then it's stripped away from you and your child, and they go to middle school. There has got to be a way, and whether that's through more guidance, because there's barely any in the middle school, because then, by the way, once you hit high school, that blanket comes back again, and you are shepherded through the process, which is N of one. My family was shepherded through the process twice in high school. So that really has to come back. I think that the other thing is, the challenge is, I was asking my daughter who's in SOMS right now, and my daughter is Caucasian, if that's not an obvious statement. The vast majority of her teachers, she has one aide who is not white. Every other teacher, male or female, is Caucasian for her. Seems to me, if we're looking from an integration standpoint on a student level, we need to walk the walk from an integration on a teacher, aide, etc. level.
Thank you. Nora?
So, like most everybody on this panel, I do not have any experience in collective bargaining, and I do have experience with contracts and some union, but not that I could mention of. But I will talk about what you said specifically about the middle school and the achievement gap. So we've had, in this experience, we've had the opportunity to talk to lots of people, lots of teachers, lots of students. And one thing that came up is South Orange Middle School has Reading 180. It's extra reading support for children that are falling behind. They're pulled out and they go to this actual class, and it's well supported. They use technology to support it. I have not seen where that's also duplicated in the Maplewood Middle School. I'm not sure if they have a Reading 180, but as far as I know, if we're talking about achievement gap and similarities in our district, the schools should be similar in some aspect. If you have that kind of support in SOMS, then you should have the same kind of support structure in MMS. Somebody else on the panel could rebuttal that, but that's my understanding. So I think if we want to make changes for our district, we want to support our children, middle school is already too late. It is too late. Once they're in 6th grade, and you're right, no more hand-holding, it's too late. If they're behind in reading 2 grades, 1 grade, it's too late. Because what happens is that poor teacher has to struggle to figure out how I can get this student up to grade level before this year ends. And I know some of them, even to get supports, they have to make decisions by February, or that's it for them. So we're putting our teachers and our children in a really poor situation, and our parents who may not even realize what's happening. But I think if we want to start, we start with making sure the middle school are similar in the type of supports that they do have.
Thank you. Michael, you want to pick up from there?
Sure. So yeah, I've been involved in contract negotiation, collective bargaining negotiation with unions within the telecommunications industry, supporting our clients at enterprise level. Listen, at the end of the day, it was mentioned earlier, we've gone over on the contract. We have an existing contract that I guess sits in place, and we expect the teachers to continue to go about their day and their commitment to the district without having the contract in place. It's a little bit disrespectful. I mean, these are the individuals, these are the educators that are spending more time with our kids than we are, and we need to partner with the union, and we need to make sure that they feel very appreciated and respected, and in turn they need to do the same back to the district. I'm not on the board, but I know the board's got a committee that's doing the negotiation now. Maybe Anne-Marie can elaborate more on that and where things stand. But I can tell you, as a professional recruiter and someone who's involved in negotiating, I'd have a real hard time if I was on the other end of this negotiation right now, because I feel like I'm getting shafted. I'm working without a new contract. So I think we need to change that. We just got to be more proactive. Again, all the issues we seem to have in the district are about being reactive and not proactive. I think it stems from poor hiring of the superintendent over the last 10 years. We need a visionary. We need a leader who's a mentor, who's a coach. This individual has to be able to set the vision of the district with the board's direction, and we as the board have to hold them accountable. This is what we said we were going to do, now let's do it. Tangible numbers, tangible results. When it comes to the middle school, I've got 2 children in the middle school. Let me tell you something. The middle school looks exactly the same as it was when I was there, okay? I had a double locker in the middle school. It's still there. I go by it every day when I go to see my kids, and it's pretty interesting. I think, it was mentioned earlier, there's no synergy between the schools. There's no synergy between the middle schools, there's no synergy between the elementary schools. That starts at the top. We have to do this moving forward. There should not be any difference. We talk about climate and culture. Every school you walk into should feel the same. It should be welcoming. It should be exciting. You should be invigorated, not falling parts and roofs and mold and disrepair. That's disrespectful. We're not helping our kids. Come on, this is time for change, guys. We've been voting this stuff off, pushing it to the side. We need to change things now.
Thank you. Anne-Marie?
So I have all of 8 months experience with contract negotiations with our union. I just actually came from a meeting. We are in active meetings with them. We actually have re-implemented having dinner together, which I know sounds trivial, but it goes to building that respect and that level of dignity and respect of the other side. Our education, public education, has been under assault for many years, and our teachers have taken the brunt of that. So some of the things in the contract that we need to talk through is healthcare, as an example. You know, Governor Murphy just worked with the union to, with the state at the state level, to create a zero copay but high deductible plan that will actually be less expensive to the teachers as well as to the districts. But that is going to require partnership with the union and partnership with the union educating our teacher base on how that trade-off is going to happen, how it transfers the risk of paying a little bit more each month, but maybe having to save some in case you need to approach that deductible, or having some kind of pool for the deductible. So those are things we have to talk about. We have to also recognize that in the past 5 years, teachers are at risk of losing tenure. You know, this is if they receive 2 ineffective evaluations in a year, they can be removed of their tenure or brought up on tenure charges. So this means that the union has to support the teachers on how to improve their practice, how to make sure that administration is giving fair evaluations, that the evaluation tool reflects what our community is looking for and what our values are. And then also there's the workplace conditions. I mean, as you said, our buildings are falling apart, but our teachers deserve, you know, more than 4 minutes to run to the bathroom. They deserve bathrooms that flush. They deserve private spaces as well. And just 15 seconds on the middle school, since I didn't quite get to that, Ms. Davenport. It's not too late, right? This is the mentality of why we continue to allow so many of our children to fail in our district and so many of our children not to live up to their potential, because we have decided that at age 11 or age 12, they are no longer capable of learning. And I am here to tell you that every child can learn. And if they're not reading at 10, then we teach them how to read. If they're not doing math at 10, then we, the adults, figure out how to make sure that they know how to read. And that's not the board's goal. The board's work is to hire that superintendent with that passion, with that commitment to our children. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the contract negotiations, I think we do need to respect our teachers and show them that we are operating in good faith. I don't have any experience personally, but my mom was a public school teacher in New York City for more than 20 years, and I saw the toll that it takes on the collective morale of the faculties. And you know, so I do think that that's important to respect our teachers, give them the dignity that they deserve, and you know, this sets up a more attractive district to hire new teachers and teachers who are innovative. When it comes to enhancing middle school experience, you know, I think there are things throughout the district that are working, and we need to do a better job of identifying those teachers, those curriculums, those classroom plans that are working, and see how they can be adapted to a broader set of students. You know, I think we do need to have some more flexibility with curriculum and give teachers leeway. The good teachers need to be trusted to, you know, to try new things, to innovate in the classroom, and to incorporate creativity throughout where they can. Children are amazingly creative, and you know, someone who excels in one subject may, you know, may not excel in every subject, but you know, I do believe that every kid has this innate creativity that allows them to solve problems, and that's what creativity does. That's how it applies in the real world. You know, not everyone is going to be a painter or a musician necessarily, but understanding how that process works and looking at things from a different angle, it does have real world value. And with the disparity in experiences between the middle schools, I've actually heard from a lot of students about disparities in elementary schools and the middle schools. And that speaks to a lack of cohesiveness throughout the district, and there needs to be a better long-term view in how we approach, I don't like the word standardizing, but sort of offering the same opportunities and the same innovation and incorporating creativity in equal measure throughout the schools. Thank you.
And last but not least, Christopher.
Yay moms who are teachers. Although my mom was part of the New York City teacher strike in the 70s, and I remember that. I also remember I didn't say yay mom in third grade too much. I don't have any direct collective bargaining experience. I do have contractual experience, hiring experience, unless you want to count the Works Council folks in Germany. But I'm going to say this, without knowledge of the give-backs and the demands on both sides of the aisle, it's kind of hard to answer that. But one thing to me at least is clear vis-a-vis teachers in this district. And you can call it a little bit of bias, and that's fine. I don't care if people think there's a little bit there. There is. They provide the backbone of everything that we on the board are doing in the district. We can come up with all the plans we'd like. We can come up with various programs and initiatives, and we can talk about the achievement gap, and we can talk about honors classes and spout until we're purple. But at the end of the day, it's those guys in the rooms with our kids. And I don't think we can forget that on this side of the aisle. So for better or worse, and without knowing the details of the negotiations, I can't get farther than that. But I do think it's something to keep in mind, particularly when it comes to delays and dragging these things on. The fact that it sounds like you guys are going to dinner together, I think, is awesome, and that's fantastic and a great way to do it. In terms of the middle school side of the equation, I'll speak from personal experience on one and sort of up in the air on the other. One of the things that both of my kids, a few years apart, benefited from in 5th grade at Clinton was teachers that helped transition them into middle school. It wasn't part of what they did in terms of being instructed to do. It was something that they kind of worked into the fabric of how they taught, particularly the second half of the year. And they kind of built up the confidence, built up the knowledge, built up the acumen, built up the ability in the class in order to help these kids move into middle school, give them a basis that they needed to overcome some of the noise that being a middle schooler at that age, which from my recollection was horrific, they could overcome at least and not get bogged down with that stuff. And I think that's something that we need to look at, not just in individual classrooms or with individual teachers, but standardizing across the district. The other side of it is the environment. Mike touched on that. We need a few more coats of paint on the walls. We need to make it a place that's conducive to learning. We need to not look around the buildings. One of the complaints I always heard from my kids was the state of affairs in the various classrooms. And you might think that they're 13 and 14 and 15 and they don't notice this, but mine did. And I think that goes a long way to finding something in the area.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We'll take a few more questions, but we'll make it 1 minute. I know it's difficult. Okay, we'll start with.
Oh, it's 9:04. Wow.
Yeah, my battery is almost done.
The timer is almost done.
My phone's in the car.
Hi, so first of all, thank you. Given the agreement among all of you regarding the critical importance of getting the superintendent selection right, if you're elected to the school board, what are the top 3 things that you'll be looking for in our next superintendent? Just 3, and why? And how will you guarantee that we've attracted the most experienced and skilled administrator with knowledge of current and innovative best practice?
In 1 minute.
Do the best you can.
And I think we'll start with Michael, since not Michael, I'm sorry, Christopher. And it's 1 minute, Christopher.
Don't make me pull that out.
No, I'm not going to make it all the car. I'm losing my voice anyway. So top 3 things in the superintendent that I'd be looking at. How do we ensure that? Don't count this. How do we ensure that? Okay. Number one, I think I mean, look, the superintendent drives everything that the board is directing, right? So he's their CEO, board's board, and he goes off and does his bit throughout the entire organization, overseeing from a management standpoint, you know, the various assistant superintendents, department heads. I think that's critical. We're staring in the barrel of a number of interims that Dr. Ficarra has set up, for better or worse, throughout the district. Those need to be addressed. I think there's got to be somebody who's got to have an extended network of people with experience, long, deep experience in the various roles that he's going to need to, or she, or they are going to need to fill going forward. I think that's critical. I mean, the hiring aspect of it is absolutely critical, given the state of affairs there. Number one. Number two, they've got to be have significant knowledge on the finance side. There's a major plan afoot. The budgets are going to be tight. This plan alone is going to be $100-something odd million. They're going to be, you know, integrally wrapped up in that. I think it's critical. Number three is going to be the integration, and I'm going to throw the achievement gap and equity in it because I don't really have that much time. But they're going to have experience in that in other districts that mirror our district as best as they can in order to be able to push the initiatives forward.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I'm going to revise it. How about the top two? Because otherwise you won't.
Yeah, it's going to be two.
Well, first of all, they have to have the track record of achievement. We want to see in the when Dr. Librera gave the update on how the search was going. That's one of the things he talked about being one of the top considerations. It's just having a track record, having a history of fixing schools, of fixing achievement gaps, of fixing disparities in race. And the other thing that I would like to see personally is, you know, obviously management experience, but also a vision. You know, I want to see somebody who's an innovator, somebody who's able to incorporate a vision, something that is cutting edge, and make it work, and translate that into a workable plan that gets results. And that's, you know, those two things would be the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
So, having served on the interim search committee, I can assure you that there are leaders out there who are eager to come to our district and who are eager to face some of the challenges, as well as they're invigorated by this engaged community. That was a lot of the feedback that we received. I also agree that we need someone with significant experience, but I'm looking for experience of building school leaders, as well as moving our district forward and serving all children well. I am a little concerned and anxious, and I've shared that with my fellow board members right now, that we overemphasize someone who is so good at managing a construction project, because schools are not a construction project. As Dr. Ficarra said, you hire the experts to do that. We need to hire someone who knows how to move our district forward by building leaders in the buildings that believe in every ounce of their body that all children can learn.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is now. There we go. So let's just focus in on track record. The individual that we are fortunate enough to recruit and hire in this district should be able to show us very clearly how they've done in their previous role. We should be able to look at key factors. If the district improved in their achievement gap, did the district retain and hire teachers? What's their retention rate? What's their diversity of teachers of color? We want to see how they've handled their facilities, whether they've been involved in a capital expansion or just how they've managed their budget. We should be able to see those things very clearly in those results. We also need someone who is a mentor and coach to the principals. In my opinion, that person should have been a principal at some point in their career. Okay? Our previous superintendent 2 times ago was never a principal. Now, that individual was managing and mentoring principals, but he'd never done the job before.
Who was he?
Brian Osborne. So you have to look at what you want in the individual and what you expect from them. And this day and age, it's real simple. Look at the superintendent's results. You can see how the district's doing. We should also hire a superintendent who's not in between jobs, as we did with our previous hire. To me, that's how we have to go about it.
Thank you.
So, what are we looking for? One, somebody who's committed to staying. I think I've heard so many time and time again, people come in, a couple of years, they want to leave. Somebody who's willing to do beyond the 3 years. Ideally, in the middle of their career, really kind of growing their career. That's one. Two is has operational experience on 3 fronts. One of them on dealing on integration. 2, on mentoring and creating leaders at the teacher level and principal level. And then 3, knows how to run a budget, knows how to deal with capital infrastructure projects, has some sort of track record that shows they're competent within that space. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon? Okay.
Okay, so what are we looking for? First of all, in a superintendent is somebody that shares our shared values, our mission, our vision, who we are as a district, what we're looking for. Right now, Dr. Fakera has been working very hard on building the foundation of our house, of our community, of a path forward, moving our district forward, and the next superintendent has to be able to come in and finish building the rest of the house so we have that solid foundation that we can build around. And that's going to look like a superintendent that has an understanding of the diversity of our community, has experience not only with investing in teacher support systems and teacher attainment, but also being able to make student-centered voices a first priority within our district, and also as a superintendent that can come in and also be really conscious and aware of our community that is so vocal and so involved and knows that we want to be working with them, with them on a path forward for our district. The other part for working for a superintendent right now is making sure that we're looking outside of our district, not just for a warm body to be in a seat, but for the person that does match our community values and knows and understands our plans to move forward. That's key. I don't want somebody that leaves in 3 years, in 5 years. I want somebody that's passionate, that's going to be invested in our community and be a part of our community.
When I look at our district, we have a performance problem. We have a performance problem. I want to go back to the question the guy in the back had asked about, do I see all 90% of kids in Columbia High School taking honors class? For that to happen, we have to address a performance problem. And if you call that our achievement gap, if you call it access and equity, if you call it our integration. So I want the guy for me, the woman for me, has to have a track record of performance. I would like to see them published. I would like to know that their doctoral thesis is about performance. Because this capital program, it's going to be done. We are going to fix it. We are going to redistrict. Those things are going to be done. And in 3 years, in 5 years, the performance issue has to be the thing that we're focusing on. So I'd love to see someone who is performance-based, someone who's data-based. I said earlier, it is absolutely criminal in this district that we don't have data. I want to have someone who's going to live, breathe, eat data, who can turn around in a year and say, I did this, and here's the data, and we're going to do that, and this is the data. That's the only way we're going to know, and we're going to have faith, and those bridges are going to come back.
Nora?
So, I echo the sentiment of most of the people on the board here, on the panel, saying, but I think what's critical for me is having a transformational leader, not somebody that's transactional. He's not going to come in and check the boxes for all the things that we're missing and be reactive to the things that we're trying to catch up. He has to be transformational. He has to see that this is where we need to start, but this is where we need to end. And he also has to be, or she has to be, a good listener and communicator. Willing to listen to everyone, not just the community, not just the students, but principals. Every single person has to have an ear for that person. I think the best experiences are when you talk to somebody who is a leader and they're willing to sit down and take your ideas and tell you, give you the autonomy to kind of run with those ideas. Not to say that he or she will be able to do that fully, but definitely being able to take the time to listen to our students, our teachers, our principals, as well as our community. Again, a transformational leader who's a change agent. He or she's gonna have to make a lot of changes here for us. and he has to be a change agent, willing to take the risk to make the change, willing to stand up to the board that he's going to have to report to. So all those things matter.
Thank you. Now, I think we'll take one more question, and this man I saw, and we'll do 1 minute again. And let's start. Let's start over here. No, I have to go down.
I'm Phil Kokorinos. We're talking about hiring a new superintendent, so I want to ask a little about the board's relationship to the superintendent. You will set the goals for the superintendent that he'll implement for the district. You'll share progress along the way as you manage him. That'll include personnel matters that are confidential, and it'll include, several people have talked about change in the district. If the superintendent makes a very unpopular decision, which is driven by confidential personnel matters, or the goals that the board has set for the district, and you are facing our very active public, what will you do? Or what have you done?
So I think this is going to come back to, I think, another thing that everyone on this panel has talked about is how we communicate and being transparent. So if you have to be able to be transparent. If it's information that you can share, I'm sure that we'll be able to share it. If it's information that we know there's a certain time frame that we can release it, we'll release it. But I think it boils down to simply figuring out how much transparency we can have with regards to whatever issue arises.
Building off of what Narda said, the stark reality is that our board, year over year over year, has allowed trust to disintegrate within our district to the point that it's hard to know what we don't know. We know so little that we think the worst when a decision comes out. And you know, Elizabeth, Aaron, over the course of the summer, we as a community, myself included, was like, "Are you got to be kidding me? What is going on?" And that's a hot flashpoint. But then you have a small flashpoint where changes were made to professional development. None of these can be taken in context when as a community, we literally do not trust the 9 Board of Ed members and the administration to be honest with us. So first and foremost, as a collective, the 3 new board members who are seated and the 6 who exist, first have to reestablish trust with the community. We've got to tell you what we're going to tell you, share as much as we can. So the idea of like, what would I do with you? First, I'm going to work a whole lot to make you believe me. So therefore, when you come to me and I have to look you in the face and say, I can't tell you because, you're going to be like, all right, she's told me these other things, I'm going to need to believe this one must be kept confidential.
Yeah, sorry.
So as a school board member, we're governed under ethics laws and guidelines that we have to follow, which also includes making confidentiality. And so there are going to be times with the community in the district where when you approach the school board or school board members individually or collectively, that they're not going to be able to share as much information as they perhaps would like with you, or respond in a way that gives full breadth of information at that particular time. So depending on the situation, it is based upon how much information that a BOE, sitting BOE member can actually give you that information at that time. With that being said, we do have to do a better job of communication within our district as a whole. Communication, not just to the community, but communication to teachers, to principals, and to students in our district. And that's something that we can strive and work towards. But how that relates to how we engage with the next superintendent is going to be making sure that we come together and we have a clear understanding and focus on a path forward, and making sure we're explaining and educating the community what that looks like, how we're going to get there, how it's going to be achievable, and how we can do it together.
Right.
Okay. First and foremost, trust. I feel like we're going to say a lot of the same things, so I'm going to just keep it real simple and to the point. Trust is number one. Building the trust with everyone, every stakeholder. Two is creating frameworks and providing context to the community on how communication is going to happen depending on what those challenges or information is coming down. You have to give them context so they don't feel like they're in a void. And to do that up front at the beginning of when that new superintendent comes in, making sure people understand that stuff. And when you have those frameworks, consistently communicating to the community as much as possible, the good things and the bad things, so they feel that that trust is there. Thank you.
With every communication that the district sends out, we have to, as board members, with the superintendent, with the director of communications, we have to be prepared for what the reactions are going to be. And we have to be prepared for follow-up statements from the board or from the director of communications or from the superintendent. We shouldn't be waiting to see how the town reacts, because that's not effective. That's what's happening right now. We send out communication, there's conversations, there's thoughts that go through everyone's mind, and we should have thought about that. And we should have had a follow-up to that with some frequently asked questions. This is what you're thinking, this is why we can't discuss some of these things. Whatever, from an ethics standpoint, we are allowed to share, we need to share. But again, an effective superintendent who is responsible for communication should have a track record of doing that. So the person that we decide to hire, we can very simply look at what the communication flow has been throughout that district that he, she, or they has been in. And I think that's important. But you also have to remember the board, in many cases, probably wants to share a lot of things that they're just restricted to. So you have to be respectful of that. There are times where we're going to have to basically say we can't talk about it. But we need to sit back in a room and say, but what can we push back out? Because the district's asking for more. And we owe it to the district to give as much as possible, even if we messed up on the first communication. It's okay.
So I do agree that you have to have trust, not only with the community, but you also have to have trust with your superintendent, that he is discussing his observations with the board, that the board is asking those questions about support and opportunity. That is definitely something that you will do as a board member. But I think it's important to remember what the board's role is in all of this. The superintendent, he is managed by the board, but the superintendent is protected by his contract. So this is not something that we can just fire the superintendent because we're unhappy with him. We have to create a working relationship with him to deliver on the goals and to make tough decisions, but with informed consent from the board. And that's not a very good answer, but that's what I'm going to leave it with.
When it comes to communication, I want to see the board get out in front of anything that could be considered a scandal. I understand there are confidentiality laws and considerations when dealing with personnel matters, and that, that's fine. But what I want to see from the district is a clear statement of values. I want to see a district that's committed to transparency, accountability, and dignity. And the district needs to build trust by embodying those values at every step, with every policy, with every proposal it puts forward. And that's how you begin to rebuild trust and then begin to think about a communication strategy for informing the public and creating a two-way dialogue, going into the community and pulling information out of people and understanding where the community is and taking in the various diversity of opinion. So it's a two-way street, and the district needs to do a better job of all of that.
Try to remember the question, but if the super is making a decision that the community is in complete disagreement with, or majority disagreement with, and if it's something that I would not agree with and take issue with, and it's something that needs to be worked out between the board and the superintendent or amongst board members, reality is that if I don't agree with something or wouldn't agree with something, then, and I can't achieve consensus or see the other viewpoints and agree with the other viewpoints, then it's simply a no vote. I mean, I don't see the reasoning behind an I no vote if in fact that there are people on the board that strongly disagree with a particular motion that's being carried. I could hear arguments for that, but on the other hand, I could hear arguments against it. So as far as that goes, if the core belief is there, and if the community sentiment is there, and if there's justification for it, there you have it. In terms of communication, we don't anticipate very much, and I don't know whether that's we take the community for granted or we're just not very good at it, but the reality is that I think we need to do a better job of looking at what community reaction is going to be. It's not like we don't have a body of work to draw from to kind of understand what that might be, to better project that and address that stuff in communications as we go out when we are making tough decisions on the board, and that's something that in fact we need to do a better job with. All in. Thanks.
I want to thank everyone. I think we'll end here. You've been very patient and very concerned, and I really appreciate it. And this one young lady had a question. I hope you can stay here for a little while and speak to some of the candidates. Can talk to the candidates individually. And thank you for being such a